Hey, what's up, guys? We are back with another episode of the Paragade Chronicles. Tonight, we are actually going to be speaking about the Mass Effect 2 crew. Some of them, as you know, you're going to see coming back from Mass Effect, and then others you're going to see as brand new faces. We are on the journey to travel through the Omega 4 relay, and we need all hands on deck. We need as much help as we can get, and we need to make sure that they're actually going to be able to do this.
Yep.
So yeah, we're going to actually start off at literally the very beginning of the game, where the first two people you meet are also honestly two important characters as far as who you are dealing with. That is
Important.
Yes, we'll go with that as well. Let's just say that Jacob Taylor and Miranda Lawson are very significant characters going forward. They are part of the Cerberus organization, which Shepard does actually have a few dealings with in the first game.
If you did the side missions.
Yes, and truthfully, if you did not, it won't hurt it, but you do get a little bit more context, especially when speaking to Miranda.
You get a little more background information on what Cerberus is and who they are as well. So it is always good to do. And that mission starts with the Admiral Kahoku in Mass Effect 1. Mm-hmm. So if you ever get the chance to, if you never did, try that out because it gives you a little bit more background information, and it gives you also some extra lines, I believe, with certain characters. Like I know when you see Tally on Freedom's Progress, you mentioned something about Cerberus with her. I think you mentioned that in the last episode, or one of the previous episodes you mentioned that.
Yeah, because that was in the Mass Effect Ascension novel.
Yes.
That they actually had an interaction with Cerberus, which left a sour taste in everybody's mouth. Except for Cerberus, they seem to justify everything they do, so that should tell you everything you need to know about them.
It's for humanity. It's for humanity. That's how they justify it.
But yeah, why don't we go and let you start with Miranda and Jacob, see what all we can learn about them that we don't already know.
So basically, the first person that you actually see in the game, because basically if it wasn't for Cerberus, Shepard wouldn't be alive. Because in the very beginning of Mass Effect 2, they show the old Normandy getting destroyed. By an unknown enemy, which turns out to be, in the end, it turns out to be the Collectors, who you are fighting throughout this game. And so the first person that you see, because this project was literally her baby, is Miranda.
Right. And the project being Project Lazarus, which anybody who knows the story of Lazarus, he was brought back to life. And I don't remember how much longer he lived, but essentially that was the gist of it. It was a resurrection project to bring Shepard back to life. So
yes, that cost Cerberus a lot of money, but they did it anyway. And like I said, it was Miranda's project. It was Miranda's baby. So you kind of wake up a little bit before how you should, and she's the first person that you see with Wilson, one of the other characters that's not really a main character in the game. He's just kind of there.
Yeah. He's with you like briefly.
Yeah.
On your way trying to escape the
facility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically you see her and Wilson, and Miranda's basically like, he or she isn't ready. You need to sedate them again. They're not ready, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on to, that's when you customize your character. And then you come up and you basically hear a voice, which is actually Miranda. And she's telling you to wake up. She's basically trying to tell you that the facility is under attack and you need to get the fuck out of there. Because
it's almost like she's telling you, Shepard, get your ass out of bed now.
So you wake up, and this is the cool thing that they added with Mass Effect 2 for, especially if you're Renegade. This is where they added the facial scarring. So when you wake up, depending on the level of your Renegade in the first game, you actually see a little bit more scars on Shepard's face. They're a little more defined. Like, you see a lot more than what you would if you were more like a Paragon.
Right. So they're more prominent on Shepard's face. So again, yeah, like the way that I play, trying to stay middle of the road, I'll see it on there, but it wouldn't be as deep. They almost look like gashes on your face. And then the further you go within Mass Effect 2, staying on that Renegade path, your eyes will start to glow a little bit.
It's actually badass. I love doing it, and it looks really it looks cool on both male and female Shepard, but it looks fucking badass on male Shepard. I will admit,
that was probably one of those things that I've mentioned with the Knights of the Old Republic that they did with the light side and dark side of the Force. You see the physical representation of your alignment. Now, obviously, when you're good, even if you're as far good as you can go, you're still going to be like your natural tone, color, and everything. But the further bad that you go, you'll actually start to see them look almost like they've been rolled around in charcoal. Almost, they're just completely grayed out, evil looking. Period. So, but okay, so back to Miranda. So she basically wakes Shepard up to say, get up. We need you to get to the exit of the facility. So she essentially guides Shepard through to make sure that
you make it out alive.
Right. Because it would be kind of pointless to resurrect somebody and they die where you brought them back to life. That would suck. But
Literally brought you back to life just to get attacked in the facility that you were working on, just to die after spending millions of dollars or credits.
Yeah.
Just to kill you.
Yeah, that does not seem fun at all. But yeah, so you do end up she ends up waking you up, have you get your weapon and armor, which
it's like your tutorial to Mass Effect 2, because they added a different weapon system in Mass Effect 2. They added a thermal clip. So your guns in Mass Effect 1 would never run out of ammo. They would just overheat. And this one, they can run out of ammo.
Yes. And it's to keep that overheating from happening, but it also makes you have to search for your ammunition on the ground, no matter what you're doing, where you're going, either on the ground, or they have some of the ammo crates.
Yes.
And then that also helps with your heavy ammunition as well.
Yes. So basically, Miranda is guiding you through a tutorial and basically guiding you through the facility. It gets to a point where she actually gets cut off from you because mechs, I believe she says mechs are closing in on her position. And so after that happens, you lose touch with her and you meet Jacob Taylor. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Jacob is a character, and I've said this before, that I am not a fan of. I find his character very bland. They could have done so much more with him instead of making him your typical soldier boy, that yes man type of character that he ended up being. Um, and so, anyways, you end up meeting Jacob, and you find out he's a biotic because it's one of the first things he tells you is you see him fighting a group of mechs that are across a balcony, and obviously you can't fight them like face to face. So he mentions he's a biotic and that you can use his biotic to take them out. And this is where you also end up kind of finding out a little bit about what happened to you. I believe he mentions at this point that you've been gone for 2 years.
Yeah, because he doesn't specify. Like, okay, when you first,
he doesn't tell you where you are, what you like, where, anything like that, who they work for. He just mentions that your crew, your previous crew, isn't there.
Right.
And then he mentions, like I said, I think he says something about that you've been gone for 2 years.
And that happens within like 2 separate conversations with him, because you have the first one where you meet him, you take out a few of the mechs, then he kind of glosses over everything at first, and then once all the shooting and everything has died down,
he says that he'll answer some questions.
Right. And then from there,
because you can be renegade and say that you want some answers beforehand, and he'll be like, okay, but make it quick. And
yeah, because you still got people shooting at us. Well, robots, I should say, but yeah, anyway. but yeah, it's like after you meet up with that, you're back on the move again, heading on your way out, trying to find a way. But before that, after you go through the 20 questions, you actually hear from Wilson, who again was there at the beginning, and he's needing some help trying to get through. So he's trying to guide Shepard and Jacob through this pathway to get to him. But in the process of doing all that, you still run into more mechs. And Jacob's basically like, dude, find us a route that isn't, swarming with mechs. And, he's trying as best he can. But you find out there's a little bit more to him than, you think.
Yeah.
Which, now thinking about it, would make sense how Shepard wakes up when they do. And Miranda telling him, you need to do something about this. Put Shepard back under. So yeah, going into that, you see Wilson again, and he's basically laying out on the floor.
Well, basically, right before that, like before you find him, he says that he got shot in the leg.
Right.
And then you find him when you finally you go through the door and you get the cutscene and you see him on the ground and he goes, "Oh, I was shot by a couple mechs, blah 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 blah. I'm not doing anything till you guys fix my leg."
Yeah.
And that's your introduction to the Metagel system in this game.
Which, yes, is very different for, 2 and 3? Because I want to say that a lot of the mechanics they kept within 2 and 3 as far as that went. With
2 and 3 are vastly similar in weapons and like with the clips and stuff, I believe. And the Metagel. They kind of keep 2 and 3 the same with how they do the power wheel and like that. Whereas the first game had the wheel, but it was more advanced in the second game and then more advanced in the third game. So like they brought it back like continuously, but they changed some things, like I said, with the overheating guns and stuff like that. They changed some things with Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 2 and 3.
Right. Because yeah, something that I was actually just thinking of, like how many powers that you actually had within 2 and 3 as compared to Mass Effect 1. I want to say that you had almost not exactly the same amount, because when you look at the character screen and like your powers and everything, when you're doing your upgrades and all that, it's like this with Mass Effect 1. It's a little bit smaller for 2 and 3, but even 3 was just, a little bit bigger than 2 was.
Yeah.
So they gave you the opportunity to have more than you did in 2 as opposed to 3. But yeah, in any event, like you were saying that this was the first time they introduced, all these new mechanics and everything, the Metagel system. But yeah, they did reconfigure a lot of controls and everything, because it used to be on Mass Effect. I want to say that it was your top button, Y or triangle, whenever whichever you were playing on PlayStation or Xbox, and then that became like your main power, because what is it for Soldier? I want to say it's like adrenaline rush.
Yes. And I think that was why.
Yeah. So yeah, it gave us so much more to do. It took a little bit getting used to, obviously, but
so running out of ammo sucked, especially if you were like in one of those missions that was not necessarily easy.
Right. But that's also why you bring a big gun. So especially one that can handle
that. That was something that they added to this one too, was the heavy ammo. The first one that you get as you're going through the facility, the first one you get is the flamethrower.
No, grenade launcher.
Yes, that's it. I knew it's something like that. The flamethrower is Zaid's loyalty mission.
Yes. That's where that one's introduced. But yeah, for the most part, like just how they got everything set up for going forward, really worked. Plus, it's one of the first times that you get to use some of these specialized powers. Because again, when working with Jacob, he kind of tells you, this is what I can do, and so a lot of times what I will do is go ahead and map some of the character's main powers, because one of the first things you do with him is the pull ability.
Yeah.
To where he can, grab a hold of him. It'll pull him over the balcony, and depending on what power that you have, you can use that in conjunction. The one that I love using is the slam ability, because you have that pull and then you have that slam, and it's pretty much a 1-2 punch.
But you don't get that till later. I think, isn't that Miranda's loyalty mission power? So you don't technically get that for a while.
Right. But yeah, the still the good thing about that is that if you do play it back around, or as long as you have the achievement for it, it gives you the ability to grab that when you go into the game. So, but yeah, once you get Wilson and he explains everything about him trying to shut things down, even Jacob is suspicious of him. Like, yeah, exactly. He was in the bio wing. He shouldn't have security mag access.
Yes.
But he starts to explain all that, and then mechs come through the doorway again. So Wilson basically tells you you can overload the canisters to make a path. I think he said that word for word.
Yeah, something about overloading the canisters or whatever, because he has that power.
Right, and so by doing that, you clear that out, and you also clear out the mechs as well.
Yeah.
Which means, what was in those canisters that will make them explode? Anyway, once you do that and you start walking through, it cuts to another cutscene where, what was it? You start to.
This is where Jacob tells you that you work for Cerberus, and then he says something about that. Wilson says, "Are you sure this is what you should do right now?" type of thing.
Yeah.
Or are you sure this is necessary?
Basically revealing who they are. Yeah.
Yes. And then this is where, if you did do the Cerberus side missions.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you can be like, oh, I've had dealings with Cerberus before. What the fuck?
It's like, yeah, I had my run-in with Cerberus as a Spectre last time I came across him. They were trying to kill me. Why the change of heart?
Something like that, and then it's like, and then you can say something along the lines of, oh, I don't even know who the fuck you are.
Right, and again, that's it. You can basically play that either way, whether you did come in contact with him in the first game or not.
Yeah.
It's just Shepard's way of saying, I know who you are. I'm just not saying anything right now.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then, pretty much from there, is a straight shot to the to the landing bay, I guess. Basically for you to
the loading dock, landing bay,
yeah,
whatever it is,
and then you got to cut your way through a few more mechs, and then by the time you get to the door, Wilson's trying to unlock it, and next thing you know, the door opens, and guess who's there?
Panda.
Yeah, with a bullet for his head. Or at least chest, I could say.
This is where you can say, I knew he was a liar or whatever, or you can basically be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's along the lines of that's your idea of due process. You should have taken him alive, see what he knew. And then, I think I want to say that's like the last thing that Shepard could say is like, yeah, I kind of knew he was ready to shoot you in the back.
You can say that as one of them, or you can be like, or I think you can. I don't know if you pull your gun on her either way. I think you have your gun like facing her.
Yeah, it's pretty much like you have it up,
but
you're just on guard, essentially. But plus with it being a cutscene, it's just one of those. But yeah, for the most part, it's kind of like, I had a feeling that was going to happen. So now that we've made it off of the station, I don't even think they gave that place a name.
Like I said, it's just a facility, Cerberus facility. That's what I call it, is Cerberus facility, because you're basically, or like a med bay thing, because you're literally getting put back to life there.
Right. So going from there, you leave on the shuttle and head to another Cerberus facility before going to Freedom's Progress. This is actually where you
meet the elusive man.
Exactly.
Well, meet.
Hold on, because I was actually, and this is completely related. I told you, what was it, yesterday? I want to say I was watching Oblivion.
Yeah, and Jack Harper.
That's Tom Cruise's name in this movie, which is also the actual name of the elusive man in Mass Effect. There's one of the comics that kind of gives a little background on him, and how he came to be, which also I did not know. Foreshadowing a little bit, going into Mass Effect 3. You remember Dr. Eva Corey, who was the actual mech that Edie would essentially use her body?
Yes.
Okay. She was a real human that worked with him. And that's the reason why, number one, she had that name. I was sitting there like, wait a minute, I know that name from the game. That was the actual person. She worked closely with him during his dealings in the First Contact War. So he was in all of that. So yeah, there's a little bit of.
And what is it, Overlord DLC?
Mm-hmm.
When they're doing all those tests on David, was she a part of that?
That I don't know. We're gonna have to do some research on that.
Like, she basically turned into a mech, and their research was like a Geth type of research, like being able to speak to the Geth and stuff with David's brother.
Well, as far
But
as
but I feel like you saw some recordings or something, and it was like, I know it was mostly about David and or like Archer and his brother.
yeah, I don't remember seeing anything on her, but now I'm gonna have to look that up a little bit further just to see if they have anything, because that's a very good question, and whether
Because it's about like Geth and stuff, and it's like
Mhm.
she ended up being like a robot.
Yeah.
So I feel like they might have a connection, but I don't know.
That's again, that's a very good question, and we're gonna have to figure that one out.
I have to look
But
into that because I mean, I could see that being something that she could be a part of,
right.
especially with what happens to her.
It's very Cerberus when you think about it that way. But yeah, that's pretty much the introduction to, who is it, Jacob and Miranda. And then again, the Elusive Man is the next person that you actually meet, and you get to deal with him a lot more than you did, like, say, Anderson and Dina or anything in the first games.
Some parts where Joker is back for the second game. He's actually working with Cerberus.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. But you find that out like after he says something about that he has a pilot that he thinks you can trust, and Joker appears and kind of have like a little memory thing with him being like, oh, hey, I saw you get spaced, how are you alive, and blah blah blah. And
yeah,
so yeah, it's cool that they bring Joker back, because Joker is basically your pilot from the get-go.
yeah.
So it's kind of neat that they brought characters like that back. But Elusive Man basically has certain spots where you have to talk to him. You don't have a choice.
Right.
One of those being, he will give you dossiers for 4 people. And then you do Horizon, and then after Horizon, he gives you 4 more. 3 more.
3 more, yeah. And so that's not even including the DLC characters, Zaid and Kasumi. But
technically, Zaid and Kasumi you can get right off the bat. Zaid you see when you first go to Omega, and Kasumi you see when you
go on a Citadel.
Exactly. So no matter what, you can kind of interact with them right away. You don't have to.
Right.
But they are interesting characters. They don't add much to the story other than like
support.
They have their own little loyalty mission that you go on for them. But I actually love Kasumi. She is one of my favorite characters to bring on because of her Shadow Strike.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that thing.
I love that thing. It's just so funny how she'll like disappear and then yeah.
I love it. Like, hell, if I could do that as a character in there, I know that you have like the cloaking ability, but nothing where it like moves you like all the way across the room.
Yeah, you teleport. That's the word.
Until they had the that charge move that you can do. That will throw you all the way across the room, and I'm kind of glad that they put that into Andromeda, because I've been playing that a little bit. But yeah, so we met Miranda, we met Jacob, and again, yeah, you do come across the Elusive Man quite a bit, trying to give you insight on a lot of things, and then you kind of see where his head's at, essentially, to get whatever needs to be done. But it's also how he's doing things, keeping some things from you, and not letting you know until he thinks this is how it should have gone down.
He is very much a humanity first he doesn't really care. Like, he understands that other species and stuff are dealing with this stuff as well from the collectors, but he is more so, oh yeah, it's human colonies that the collectors are focusing on, so that's where we're going to put our focus. And so,
Which is understandable if you think about it,
yeah, but it's
but at the
just,
same time,
you know how Shepard is with aliens and stuff like that, and so you're kind of like, you're a little suspicious of him from right away.
yeah. And you can actually say that right away. It's like,
Yeah, I
you might be
believe
the
I don't trust you.
you might be the reason why I'm alive, but I still don't trust you.
Yeah.
So, and I think I kind of give him that every time. Even if I'm renegade, I probably do the same thing.
Yeah. So a little bit about Miranda and Jacob. Miranda is a character that does not warm up to you right away. She actually is, and you can literally say this to her. You can say she's a bitch.
Are you naturally this bitchy, or is it just me?
Something like that. Yeah,
I ask her that every time. I don't care if I'm Paragon or Renegade. I'm asking her that question.
But she has like this cold exterior towards Shepard. Like, you'll say constantly, "Oh, just remember who's in charge," and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, I talk to him every day," meaning the elusive man.
Exactly. Yeah.
She's like, so she's very much a character that you may not like right away. She is one of those, like, prove that you were worth saving type of people. And then you start to get her to open up about like her life and stuff, and you find out that she is genetically engineered.
Yes. Yeah.
And so she was basically designed to be like human perfection in a way. Her looks, her biotics, everything was done to give her an edge.
Yeah, I think her personality might have been part of that too, that she was listing off books.
Her intelligence, her physical, like the way she looks, her biotic abilities were designed to basically be excellent. And so she comes off in a way cocky when you talk to her about how she looks and all that, and she mentions her engineering, like her genetic engineering, a lot. And it was basically her father did all this to her. She didn't have a mother. It was just her dad, and her dad did all this stuff to her, and basically, like, he wanted her to be him in like girl form, is kind of the vibe you get in a way.
Yeah.
But you find out like that she ends up really, especially male Shepard, because she is a romance option for you in Mass Effect 2. Her romance is actually really good. Like, you just see that cold, bitchy exterior go like completely go.
Shepard melts it, essentially.
Yes. And you find that, she actually is a real person. She has feelings, and her loyalty mission is one of my favorite. I love doing her loyalty mission because that right there, you see a softer side of her, because she's basically trying to save her sister.
You see literally how human she is.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Yeah. And it's because of just how guarded she might be at first, even still, hiding behind the job, not letting personal things get in the way. The whole point of this game is obviously the loyalty missions, but with those, you are going to get personal. So it's kind of one of those, she didn't have much of a choice but to let her guard down. She even says, when you first start getting the loyalty missions coming through, Chambers, Kelly, who is basically the ship's psychologist. Also,
Yes.
she will tell you that Miranda needs to speak to you about something, and that's when
Whenever
it comes
you walk
to.
by when you're basically walking by her,
Mhm,
she's right beside the galaxy map. Anytime you walk by her, she'll only say something to you if she has something to say. So she'll tell you
mhm,
the elusive man wants to talk to you.
mhm,
She'll tell you that certain team members want to speak to you, and that usually is the start of their loyalty mission, to the point where you can even kind of have a flirtmance with Kelly,
mhm,
and then to the point where you ask her to dinner, and then she takes care of your fish. So
which I
actually,
love.
in this game,
Mhm,
you have your own cabin, and it's a lot different from the cabin that you have in Mass Effect 1.
mhm,
You have it's essentially like a mini apartment.
yeah.
Um, so you have a fish tank, and when you go to the Citadel, there's a couple stores where you can get fish.
Mhm,
And then you also have a spicy hamster.
yep.
I love
Which
that thing.
did didn't we both see Mark Mir holding a space hamster not too
I
long
see
ago?
that
It,
picture. That
yeah,
picture. And it's like, this is the best thing I ever saw.
yeah, because he was in his N7 armor too when he did that. But
You
yeah,
have
like
to look at Mark Mir's Instagram. You'll see the picture that we're talking about. It is literally amazing. It's literally a stuffed hamster, and he has it like on his shoulder.
mhm,
And anyone that plays Mass Effect knows the inside joke to that,
yeah,
being that this is literally useless, but it's like you
it's
can literally
just
go to it and it squeaks at you and goes back in its hidey hole.
that literally just you really just made me think about Mass Effect 3 and that little note that was written. So we'll get to that later. but but yeah, back to what was it? Miranda's loyalty mission. You do find out a lot about her once she has opened up to you. You're trying to find her sister on Alien, which is also where you get two other crew members after Horizon.
Mhm.
Um, so you can actually do this her mission. I usually try to do it early, and go ahead and get it out of the way. Go ahead and get her loyalty knocked out. Um, but yeah, you do find out a lot about her. Um,
You find out
her.
about her father. You find out about her supposed best friend and how
Mhm,
he basically betrayed her.
mhm,
Um, and was well, he says he didn't, but you can tell he did. And
yeah.
you just even you can actually tell her not at the end of the mission. You can say go see your sister, which is the Paragon option, and it's actually one of the times I am more Paragade, because I want her to connect with her sister, especially if she is my romance for the game.
Right.
I will tell her to go and see her sister the majority of the time,
Hmm.
because it's basically Mass Effect 2 is the Suicide Crew.
Hmm. And if your head's not right when going through that Omega 4 relay, you're gonna make a mistake.
Yeah. So
If you don't have the loyalty of all your crew members, somebody is going to die.
yeah, that can literally happen. It depends on your loyalty. It depends on upgrades for your ship that
Hmm.
you get, and I think and also what you give them to do when
Hmm.
you're actually on the collector's base. You can get
Right.
them killed by doing certain things. Like if they're not trained for
Hmm.
that,
Hmm.
they can actually die.
Right.
So there are a lot of things that go into this, which is what I like about it too. With
Hmm.
Mass Effect 2, it's crazy the amount of stuff that you can do.
Yeah. And that's not even talking about the side missions that there is tons of. Like they even have their own little connection where you'll have like three or four missions that are like overlapped
Hmm.
almost. So it's almost like a storyline within itself.
And they
Um,
give you little side missions to do on the Citadel and stuff like that. Like
mhm,
they're stupid little side missions that you don't need to do. There's one with a Krogan and a fish.
I was just thinking of that. How did you
Where
know?
I just saw your face as soon as I said Citadel missions. There's one with a Krogan and a fish. You can literally go and talk to the groundskeeper of the Presidium because you overhear the two Krogan talking about it, and you can go like, "Hey, I went and like got this fish myself," like blah blah blah. It's so much fun. And the
Which
guy's
is
like, and the Krogan basically wants
like,
to pay you for it.
see. The one is like, wait a minute, you mean there are actually are some?
Yeah,
She's like, yeah, I've got it right here.
believe you.
So you basically extort this poor Krogan for money for something that you didn't actually go up to get. You just got it from a gift shop. But it's still hilarious the fact that you can do that.
And then it's hilarious that, like, if you stand there and listen to them afterwards, he goes, "I
It's
can't
just a
believe it." Blah blah blah.
it's just a damn fish.
And just the way he says it is hilarious. Like, like
God,
he literally made this Krogan's life giving him this fish that
seriously,
isn't even from the Presidium.
seriously.
And
But
then there's another mission that you can do too, where it's the Quarian one, the Quarian and the Volus. And I never bring Tally. I always mean to, but I always forget to do it, like to bring her with it. But
yeah,
I think Tally adds a few comments about it. You've done it with
it's
Tally.
it's more of a connection to Leah Vial, who is that's her name. Um, the CSEC officer and the Volus have both accused her of stealing, and it's yeah, it's their bias against Quarians after the Geth attack
Yeah.
on the Citadel, which was technically a Reaper attack, but we'll get into that later. But the whole point of it was to find the Volus's credit shit that was left in the store. He accuses her of stealing it, and basically has this whole investigation going through. You find it and put both of them in their places when they don't even have the nerve to apologize.
Paragon option. It's actually the Paragon option.
Yeah, and even still, like as a renegade, I would do something like that because nobody does that shit. Especially when somebody isn't even doing anything to warrant that kind of hatred. They're just doing it because she's corny.
Yeah.
And she kind of says that, you're only accusing me of this because I'm a Quarian. That's the only reason that you're doing it.
Just because I'm a Quarian.
Exactly. So, doing that one was kind of, again, with me using, with me bringing Tally, you do see her kind of get a little bit hostile. And then if you also bring Garrus on this one, because that's like the whole dynamic between the two of them, he pretty much says, "Remind me never to piss you off."
Yeah.
But what about Jacob's loyalty mission? Because his, I would say, made a little bit of sense, but it's also Jacob. So
Jacob, a little bit of background information about Jacob. Jacob is actually kind of like you, how he started in the Alliance group called the Corsairs, and it was a program that contracted independent starship captains to handle missions that fell outside of the official Alliance jurisdiction. No, yeah. So he was actually he ended up leaving them, and he was assigned to Eden Prime and was present for the Geth attack that nearly destroyed the colony. Sound familiar?
He was there when Ashley was there. I don't think that they were both in the same unit. I know that she was in the 212. I think he was in another unit.
It doesn't say anything about that he was in her thing. And basically, so he ends up quitting the Alliance because he basically thought that, what they were doing wasn't necessarily like he was fed up with their bullshit, basically.
Mhm.
And then he joined Cerberus. And you can Jacob kind of is, when you first talk to him after you do after you get off the facility, he's kind of like, oh, well, do you trust me? And it's like, you can say yes or no. And he's like, fair enough, whatever. He's your typical, and that's what I mean by he's your typical like soldier boy, which kind of sucks. Like I said, he's not the greatest character. His development isn't amazing, but I will say his loyalty mission does kind of show he is a real person.
Mm-hmm.
And his loyalty mission, basically, he receives a ghost,
Mm-hmm.
and that's his father. His father's ship disappeared like 10 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
And his loyalty mission is basically you get like a distress call. He gets a distress call sent to him, basically talking about the Hugo Gernsback, which is his father's ship. So you go on to where the last location was, and basically you find out that all the males are hostile and all the females are they don't know what's going on. When they see Jacob, they're like, oh, you have his face, blah, blah, blah. They're very out of it. Like, they're very zombie in a way.
Yes. Yes. Which, I mean, you could say that about everybody because again, the men are inherently hostile. Excuse me. And like as soon as you get around the corner from where like the beacon was,
yes.
You
you have
to fight. You're talking to someone at first, one of the ladies who escaped, and she was trying to put together the words and everything to say, to kind of give them that warning.
Mm-hmm.
But she was unable to because of the environment has basically degraded their mental capacities, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then that's when the bullets start flying. You start to see some of the hostile males, and you basically have to fight your way through to get to Jacob's father.
Mm-hmm.
Between them, mechs, even the largest mech that you fight.
The YMR mech or something like that.
Yeah.
I think the YMR or whatever. Those are fuckers, I will say. I don't like them. They are fun to shoot with your heavy weapon, and if you have the arc projector, that gun is my favorite. Magical. I love that gun. If you have like 5 or 6 like enemies in a row, it literally hits all of them, and you just see them like, oh. It's the best feeling ever when you see that. Like, you're just like, yes.
I would say that my 2 go-to heavy weapons are the collector particle beam, which does work really well, especially against those big ones.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that they work well in like extreme cases, and especially like when you have to have something. But my number one favorite has to be the Black Storm that you get with the Terminus armor. Like when you play the original, and I want to say you had like the pre-order bonus. It was the Black Storm singularity projector, and then the Terminus armor, that black with the red lighting.
Yeah, I know the Terminus armor. Is the Black Storm the one that does the little like?
It's that singularity. It'll charge up and then it'll just explode.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one.
That's my go-to right there.
Is that the one that I sent you a couple videos of, and I'm just like, where Shepard? I think there was 1 or 2 where I sent you, and it was like that little like singularity thing, and then it goes.
Yes. Yeah.
And then Shepard literally looks like he's smiling in one of them.
Yes.
Okay, yes, I love that gun. That gun is amazing because I remember sending you a couple videos with that gun, and I'm just like, this is awesome.
Yeah. See, there's also a whatchamacallit. There's also an actual nuke gun that you can use, which will literally destroy everything in your path, and good luck not getting radiated in the process.
Yeah.
But yeah, that again, going back to Jacob, that was just one of those, seeing what his dad did, because it kind of explains it at the beacon. They kind of go over, the original captain died.
Yeah.
He took over, and then just let all that happen that you end up seeing. Didn't do anything to stop it, and didn't signal until he ran out of options, and that's the reason why you're there. And so even Jacob's like, you spent 10 years in a juvenile fantasy, you created a harem to play king, essentially.
Jacob's basically disappointed that his dad did all this, and he's basically kind of embarrassed that that's his father.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you the option of basically like saying, I think it gives you the option where you can shoot him, Jacob can shoot him, or he can shoot himself.
Well, close. So you can either have him arrested.
Okay, yeah.
You can give him a gun to kill himself, or you can just leave him and let the men basically take care of him.
I think there's an option with Jacob, though. I think like Jacob can shoot him.
I don't know. He wanted to, but no, he always pulls back because he says your life isn't worth the bullets in this gun.
Yes. He wanted to shoot him, but then he's basically like, yeah, you're not worth it.
Mm-hmm. So going from the two of them, typically where after acquiring Miranda and Jacob, I head straight for Omega.
Miranda and Jacob basically are your, like, you don't get a choice. Those are two of your first squad mates. They're the ones you take on. Yeah, they're the ones you take on Freedom's Progress. And then they're the ones that you first take. If you decide to go to Omega, that's who you take to Omega.
But yeah, that again, like when you first get out of the docking bay or whatever it is, onto Omega, now Zaid is kind of like your first one that you meet. Goes over all of his stuff and everything, and then you could pretty much do their missions or not between him and Kasumi. But
right away.
Yeah. But typically once you go into Afterlife and talk to Arya, she gives you the rundown on what's your actual, I would say, first two recruited members, being Garrus Vakarian, who also came back from Mass Effect 1.
Well, they say that his name is technically Archangel. You don't get to know it's Garrus until you actually meet him.
So spoiler alert, yeah, I just kind of did that to you. But yeah, he's usually the first one that I go for, and then I end up going after Dr. Solus. But yeah, as we were saying, trying to find Archangel, you have to go through all this stuff, talking to the Eclipse, the Blood Pack, and the Blue Suns, getting everything that you can on them. You see that he's basically running I don't want to say pointless, but a fruitless effort in trying to clean up a station that is pretty much run by no laws whatsoever.
He's trying to clean up Omega, basically.
Yeah, you do find out that it's him once you cut through all the bullshit, I would say. Trying to figure out who he is, trying to get to him. It kind of gives you the opportunity. You don't even take the typical route that most of them would, going up against him. You actually turn on everybody. Every merc that goes through there, you're sitting there shooting.
There's
Shooting at
three main groups: the Eclipse, the Blue Suns, and Blood Pack.
Right. So yeah, the first ones that you actually meet, I want to say you meet the Eclipse first. When you go
fight
through.
the Eclipse.
Well, I'm not even talking about fighting yet. I'm not even talking about the fighting yet. I'm talking about just going through before you get to going in. You meet Jareth of the Eclipse, the bad attitude Solarian.
Yes.
Then you can
and
actually.
Side note: if you have Zaid, I think Zaid knows.
The guy who's in charge of the Blue Suns.
Yes.
Because actually Zaid helped create the Blue Suns, believe it or not.
But you don't find that out until his loyalty mission. But but he meets. I think he has a comment about all of the people. Like I think he knows Jareth and all them, all the leaders basically.
I want to say it's just the Blue Suns member because I don't remember him saying anything about the rest of them. But
mentioned something about Jareth or whatever his name is about being a Blue Sun or being an annoying Solarian or something like that. He mentioned something about.
But yeah, you meet him. You meet one of the guys with the Blood Pack, which is mostly Krogan, Vorcha, and Varen, I want to say. But yeah, you essentially have to fight your way through just that first little bit before you get to Garrus, and then once you actually meet him, you're either surprised that it's him, finding out that it's not just Archangel, it's literally him, or there was something that we mentioned, I want to say last episode, where if you didn't meet him at all, you pretty much meet up like you're being reintroduced for the first time almost.
And it's like something I will never do because
me either.
Garrus is my homeboy.
Same. But yeah, you pretty much join forces with him going up against everybody, which wasn't the initial plan, and even Arya says something about that in the end. But yeah, you end up taking out essentially all three groups. I want to say you start with the Eclipse because they're one of the first ones over. Then you take care of the Blood Pack, and then
before you do that, there is things that you can do to sabotage them.
Oh yes. There's that giant mech that we were talking about earlier that you can.
The one that we don't like.
Yeah, you can actually sabotage that to turn it onto the Eclipse. And then in doing that, I still attack it while it's attacking them.
I try not to, but I end up hitting it.
Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, you go through the Eclipse first and wipe all them out. Then you kind of go over everything with Garrus again. When you go over that first little bit with him, there's an attack in like the lower levels that you go to, and then you end up facing the Blood Pack.
You can end up leaving. So basically what happens is you can end up leaving one of your squad with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you and your other squad mate can go down to the lower levels, and it'll show Garrus's vitals.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can kind of see how long it's going to take you, or how long you technically have. And then you can choose between the Blood Pack and the Blue Suns.
Well, it's not even really choosing between that. It's you literally have 3 points that you have to close off.
Yeah.
So it's all the Blood Pack at this point.
Okay.
So
yeah.
There's the one that's right in front of you, and then there's two on opposite sides. Typically, I hit the one in the middle, the one on the right, and then the one on the left.
The one that has the bigger area, I tend to do that one last because it's the most annoying one to do.
Yeah. See, now I'm gonna have to try it out that way, just to see how different it is. And there's also an audio glitch that I don't think they caught whenever they recorded it, if you bring Zaid on this one, everybody else tells you that you need to get those doors closed. He tells you that you need to get them open. Even on the legendary edition, when you bring him, he still does that. So they didn't fix that. Yeah.
Maybe it's something that they don't notice.
Probably. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. But yeah, that's taking out the Blood Pack, and then the Blue Suns come in with the gunship.
Yes. And that's another thing you can sabotage.
Yes. Which even that one's not really sabotage. You just take out the guy who's repairing it. So when you're talking to him,
it's not as full. It's not as full. Like I think I think it's half instead of full.
Yeah. Right. So he doesn't completely repair it when you take the thing and just stab it in his back.
It's a renegade option,
which I always do.
Fun renegade. Just because you're like, you need a break.
You're working too hard. But yeah, that's one of those where they're actually dropping people off in the gunship, and once you actually take out everybody, it cuts to a scene where Garrus is trying to take on the ship head on. That's where he ends up getting shot with a rocket to the side of the face. Which there's a joke about that later. But you see that happening, and then you have to try to take out the gunship. Again, thankfully, if you sabotaged it, taking out the guy who's repairing it, that cuts down your time on what you need to do. The best thing to use is anything with like high heat rounds, like your incendiary or inferno rounds, to make sure that you can whittle down the armor quicker. But yeah, that's pretty much your getting of Garrus, which is his loyalty.
You don't technically know if he's alive.
Right.
At the end of that.
Right. Once you do get back to the ship, you do find out that he is. And, the doctor, who is Dr. Chakwas, believe it or not, your doctor from the first game, she's back in this as well. You hear that she's done what she can to help him, to save him, essentially. And he walks into the briefing room like nothing happened. He just has this giant scar on the side of his face, and he literally asked Shepard, "It's like, all right, be honest, how bad is it?" And Shepard could be like, "Oh hell, Garrus, you were always ugly. Slap some face paint on there, and nobody will know the difference."
And then he has a comeback for you that says something about that. Well, it was about time you got the women or something.
Yeah. So it's like you see the bond that Shepard and Garrus have now. So and it's carried over from the first game. But again, going into his loyalty mission, it kind of not really takes you back to Omega, but what happened on there, the reason why he was there to begin with, and what got him into the situation that you essentially had to get him out of, was an old colleague of his that he had helped put together a bunch of people to kind of help clean up Omega, which, again, everybody had a problem with. Basically, he was betrayed by one of his squad mates, and now wants essentially revenge on him. Basically collecting on a debt, eye for an eye.
Yeah, I think that's what his mission is actually called.
Yep. So it's basically your job to collect everything that you need to, go through and find who you need to in order to find him. Come to find out, somebody else had something to do with this. An ex-CSEC agent named Harkin. You remember Harkin, right? Yeah, he was the pain in the ass CSEC officer on the first Mass Effect game that you meet in Cora's Den, trying to find information about Garrus. Right.
And
Um,
he's also the one that tells you about how Anderson was supposed to be a Spectre and blah blah blah.
mhm,
And
right.
then Ashley or Hayden will make a comment about it. But yeah.
But but yeah, you end up going up against him and like a whole squad of mechs, um, plus more of the Blue Suns. And it also makes you wonder, how did the Blue Suns get onto the Citadel at that
Yeah.
point? Uh, but yeah, for the most part, you cut through all of them. You get cut through the mechs, and while you're doing this, about halfway through, um, you basically have to talk Garrus down from actually killing him, uh, which isn't hard to do in that case. Worst thing that he could do is either shoot him in the leg or headbutt him. Hard to believe that Tyrion can actually pull off a Krogan move.
Right?
But he does a good job of it, so I'll give him that. Way to handle Sedonis. And at that point, you do have the option to try to talk Garrus down again. You don't need to kill him. Let me talk to him.
You ask him, hey, you okay? Like, you seem really like tense there. Like,
yeah,
this isn't you.
right. Because even Shepard can see how much Garrus is ready to kill Harkin, and in a way, you kind of can't blame him. But at the same time, it's like you don't really need to do that.
Yeah.
So let me go and talk to this guy and see if we can sort these things out. So you do have the option early on, or really at any point in the conversation with Sedonis, to step aside and let Garrus handle things his way. Or
you can literally do it within the first I think
seconds.
Yeah, like you can literally have it over like that, and bam, Garrus shoots him. Like, just say, "Oh, this won't take long." Step to the side.
Right. But then it's like you can stand there in Garrus's view, talk to Sedonis, let Garrus hear everything that's going on, and that'll probably take about a minute or two for him to hear. And Shepard's basically like, dude, there's nothing left of him. You don't need to kill him. And
he's already suffering enough.
Exactly. So like, yeah, it pretty much comes down to how I guess you want to handle things. Do you want to make it quick, or do you want to actually save this person? And if you do save him, I want to say that he contacts you again in Mass Effect 3. That he's been, kind of helping out with war assets and stuff. I don't remember the exact details that he had on there, but yeah, he does end up sending you like an email.
I usually kill him being renegade, so
right. But
I don't know.
But yeah, I'm not even sure what it does if you leave him alive. But,
I feel like it makes sense him being a war asset, but I don't know.
But yeah, the other one, because again, this is another one that you come across right there on Omega, is Morton Solus. He's the other member of the team that you have to recruit, and the problem with where you have to go is who you can actually bring. Technically, you can bring anybody.
Yeah.
The thing is how you are limited on your staffing.
So you can do these in any order that you want to. Like, you don't have to go get Garrus first. The only two that you have to get right away are Miranda and Jacob. The Elusive Man gives you the dossiers, and then you can kind of be like, okay, I want to go get Morden first, or I want to go get Jack, Garrus, or Grunt. Grunt is usually the one I go get first, but yeah, you don't have to do this in any specific order. You could do any of them minus the two that you get at the very beginning, but you can do any of these four, any order you want.
Right. And I've actually done it where I've gotten Grunt first, or
Hmm.
like one of the first ones I get, and then I bring him along with Garrus
Yeah.
into the plague zone, and then after a certain point, um, you actually meet a Batarian who looks like he's actually dying from the plague.
Yeah.
That was set up. Truth be told, this plague was set up by the collectors. You do find this
Oh.
out. Yeah, you do find it out uh, fairly early once you've done like the research and everything, or actually once you get to Morden. Everybody else is saying that it was created by the Vorcha, who were actually dispersing the plague. But obviously, they're not that bright to be able to
Right,
do
I remember
anything.
now. Yes, I remember that now about the collectors.
Hmm. Um, they did it in order to kill off all the aliens, leave all the humans, and then they could just collect literally everything that was left over. Um, so by the time you do reach Morden, um, Garrus and Grunt would actually say how they don't feel well. Grunt tries to, play hardball and be like, I can't get sick, you know, being the little kid who wants to throw a fit. But by the time you
Grunt
get to,
also has some funny commentary before that. Like there's a pile of rotting bodies, and he goes, "Is anybody else
anybody else
hungry?"
hungry?
So it's actually fun to bring. I know that you technically don't want to because you feel bad for bringing Garrus and Grunt, but they are worth it for
I,
their commentary in the
I
play.
typically do. I typically do, even playing Paragon, because even what is it, Garrus's dialogue, he's like, over the years I've gotten used to the smell of burning bodies.
Mhm.
I think that's a bad sign.
I think I think Grunt says anybody got
anybody,
or got
anybody
something
else
to eat,
hungry? Yeah.
something like that.
But yeah, once you do get to Morden, in his clinic, he basically heals both of them. Or one of them, or whoever that you bring along, it may not even be necessary if they're human. But yeah, specifically with Grunt and Garrus, he does heal them after traveling through, and gives them like this kind of immunity
Yeah.
to help you finish the mission. Um, so you meet Morden, the second person, on Omega to collect, and his first encounter is like a blur. You have three ways of doing this: Paragon interrupt, Renegade interrupt, or just wait for him to finish. I typically wait for him to finish because he's just going like a mile a minute. Um, and you're just sitting there like, do you ever pause for breath? And he's like, I'm sorry, I'll try to slow down. No, 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 can't do it. Who are you? And then, you pretty much introduce yourself, Commander Shepard, working with a privately funded human group. And then he pretty much deduces that it's Cerberus.
He has these guesses, and then he's like, Cerberus, and you're like,
Unexpected.
how did you find out?
Well, come to find out, he had his own run-ins with Cerberus when he was in the Solarian Special Task Group, which, just like the Spectres, is a branch of the Citadel. They're more like the spies, the infiltrators, and everything. So he actually worked with, you find out later, Captain Kirahi, who you worked with on, right, the captain of the STG on Vermeer.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's history no matter where you go, no matter what characters you come across in each game. Everybody, like I said earlier, ends up crossing one another at some point. But yeah, you essentially on the mission to recruit him, you have to basically get the fans, essentially the but yeah, Morden can actually kill Malin if he wants to, or if you don't stop him.
It's a Paragon option if you want to stop him.
Right. And it's only a Paragon option. If you don't do anything, he basically kills him right then and there. But you can still keep the data to either save or, sabotage the key.
Keeps working on it or something along the lines if you save him, because I feel like I've saved him, and it has a better chance of having the genophage cured in 3. Something along the lines of having Malin alive has an effect. I can't remember what.
He does something, but whether you do keep him alive or not, I know that keeping the genophage data that he had already started working on, that's the key part. Whether he's there or not, immaterial. But yeah, he what he started can actually be finished, or again, you can sabotage it, and then you'll have to deal with the wrath of Rex.
If he's alive, yes.
If he's alive, right.
Which is what we talked about in the last episode. We mentioned we didn't say exactly what can happen, but you basically have another showdown with Rex on the Citadel. And he basically says along the lines that you thought I was stupid and I wouldn't figure it out if you sabotage the cure.
Right.
And basically that ends with you shooting him. And like I said, I think he makes a comment about not having Ashley if Ashley is dead.
Right.
That you don't have Williams to shoot me in the back or something like that this time. But this is a side of Rex that you don't want to see. This is a side where I will literally replay all the way back to fucking Tajanka in the second game. There's a couple things that I will make sure I do now, so this is where I tend to play more Paragade, is keeping the cure, saving Malin, depending on what my renegade already is by the time I get to his mission. I will decide whether I want to keep, but I will always keep the data. I will never ever not get it, because I also don't like losing Eve in the third game, and having the data is what generally saves her.
Because they had already started on that on Sarkesh, believe it or not, and it was Morden who basically gave Rex all that information that leads you to basically landing on there trying to save the Krogan. So yeah, that was a critical point in that. So yeah, definitely saving the cure on 2 will have those strong implications on 3. Sabotaging the cure, however, in 3 is going to give you that, maybe I shouldn't have done this.
If Rex isn't alive, Reeve, his brother, is the one that is the leader in 2. And Reeve is too stupid to figure out that you sabotaged it. So if you're going to actually do the sabotage thing, it's also hard because you shoot Morden.
Yes.
Because Morden won't let you sabotage.
You end up shooting him in the back before he even gets into the elevator. And then he, as he gets off of it, he starts to bleed out. And before he can actually make it to the console, I think it's too late at that point.
I think he dies, yeah.
Yeah.
But that is also, so you essentially shoot, if you decide to have Rex, you essentially shoot 2 people. Two of your former squad mates to sabotage this cure.
Yeah.
So it is not, to me, it is not worth it. Yeah. For the fact that I also, when I first started playing Mass Effect 2, I wasn't a huge fan of Morden. I wasn't a big fan of his character. And then I played 3 and I replayed 2, and I actually sat and listened to his character, and I'm like, you know what? his character is actually like really neat to actually sit and listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And I also liked how there's a part in Mass Effect 2 where he sings.
Yes. He sings a version of Gilbert and Sullivan. And I forgot what the actual name of the song was, but it's essentially a scientist scenario.
I heard it on Grace and Frankie. They actually played it, and I'm like, oh my god, I know that. And it's funny because the actor that plays the elusive man is in this show.
Mm-hmm.
And he is actually, I don't know if he's singing it or if he's listening to it, but it was just the irony of the elusive man literally there with the original song on. I'm like,
now that means I'm going to have to watch this show. I'm definitely going to have to start watching it.
But it's just funny because you think of him as the elusive man, so it's weird watching him play a gay man.
Yeah.
But it's great.
It sounds like something I need to check out. Something that'll be worth it.
But, yeah, I can't remember what the actual name of it is, but basically it's like, I am a very model of a scientist Solarian, and he goes on and on.
Yeah.
It's funny that he literally will sit there and sing to you. And then afterwards he's just like,
yeah. It's like, yeah, that didn't just happen.
I just felt it out in song.
It's like, yeah, just casual, whatever.
He also made a comment later on in the game about your romance.
Yes.
Talking about.
Well, see, you could talk about literally anybody on the crew, whether it be like some of the NPCs, trying to figure out how crew members are handling things. But yeah, he will definitely talk about the crew in a way that a doctor would.
But he makes a comment to you about protection.
Yes.
And how you should be careful. And I don't know if he does this with the human ones. It's more so with Tally, with Garrett.
Yeah.
Bane. But I don't know.
Anybody who's alien.
I think he might make a comment about the human ones, but I think it's funnier when he makes a comment about the alien romance options, because he's just like, Shepard's literally like, what? Like, Shepard's like, are we actually doing this right now? It's just something that you wouldn't even think of that they would add to that. So I thought it's hilarious that they had him make a comment about who you romance, and just like literally like a doctor patient type of thing that's happening.
But also, given Morden and how comical his character is anyway, it makes sense. I think it
was a nice little addition.
Yeah. So moving on from him, let's go on to Grunt, our cute little tank baby.
Our cute little token.
Yeah, little. That's funny.
Little to other Krogan.
Yes. So he wasn't even the original one that we were supposed to get.
No, I was just about to say that. I was just about to say Grunt isn't actually the squad member that you're going to get. You're supposed to be going to get a Krogan warlord named Okir. So you land on the Colora
planet.
Yeah.
Where this old ship just landed, and you're pretty much just navigating through it. And that looks about it.
It's literally set up like a battleground. Like, there's there's structures, but they're mostly broken, and they're just kind of
yeah,
so to say. Like, it's literally set up like you're fighting like here. And basically, so Okir was originally investigating the genophage. And he gradually became obsessed with his work, and kind of realized that surviving the genophage had become the only benchmark for good Krogan, which was essentially weakening the species as a whole. He decided to produce a genetically pure superior Krogan. So basically like a badass, even more badass Krogan that was purebred.
And didn't have to deal with the stigma of the genophage, because, you know, he was taken from, you know, just science, literally. Born in a tank, no markers of the genophage, as pure as you can be.
He incorporated genetic legacy of several notable Krogan. And they list off like a bunch of names that that basically essentially mean nothing to the Krogan. Like when he starts talking about it, they're like, oh, okay.
Right.
But basically he's a super soldier. And even was seeking help from the collectors for this. So he, after rejecting thousands of specimen as unworthy, which are the ones that you technically kind of fight through the Chloris system, as you're trying to get to Okier, these are the ones that you're kind of fighting. Before you even meet Okier, you run into a Krogan that is fighting the Blue Suns. And he talks to you and says that he's only been alive for like 7 days, and that tank mother and all this, and he kind of gives you a background into what's happening there. And then you ask him to come along, and he's like, no, I'm making my stand here, blah blah blah. So you kind of wonder, okay, like, oh, what's going on if that's the type of Krogan that he's making. And then you get to Okier, and basically what happens is he explains that he has this prototype, and this is like the only way he's going to help you is if you get his prototype off of the system. And then as you're doing that, Jador, which is the leader that you're trying to fight through on this one, she releases a toxin into where you are. And Okier basically says, deal with that. I'll protect my Krogan and blah, blah, blah. You go fight her. You come back. Okier is dead. You see a little video of him kind of explaining what he did, and that you need to take his baby, basically.
Yeah.
You need to take this. This will be an asset to you and your team, and blah, blah, blah. So you bring on, and this is actually the only, no, not the only. This is one of the ones where you can choose to have them. Because you don't have to open the tank. You can choose to give it to Cerberus, which I will never do. I love Grunt. He is one of my favorite characters in this game. So just the way Grunt is amazing. And so yeah.
Little known fact, and I don't know if you knew it as well. Grunt is voiced by Steve Bloom, who we spoke about him a little while ago, believe it or not. Wilson.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yep. So he shows up a few times. He does deepen it for Grunt.
Obviously.
to give it that Krogan effect. But now you hear it.
Yes, like I
Now
hear
you can hear it.
Wilson's voice in my head, and I can hear Steve Bloom.
Mhm.
That is awesome. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, again, it goes to like Mark Meir playing so many different characters within here, between Commander Shepard, some of the Volas, the Vorcha. I want to say he does the voice of like all the Vorcha. They just
He does, yes.
change it up.
Yeah, he does.
But yeah, for the most part, I was like, when I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, that does sound familiar. So I go to look it up, and yeah, Steve Bloom plays both Wilson and Grunt in this game, and
that's amazing.
he just does a phenomenal job acting. Period. But yeah, that was just fun to kind of throw to.
Another BioWare game that he does is Dragon Age.
Mm-hmm.
He does Oghren in Dragon Age.
Yes.
Which, if you don't know Dragon Age, Oghren is a drunk dwarf.
So basically playing what he's meant to play.
But yeah, so Steve Bloom is definitely a character or a actor that is known for BioWare games. And he is a character. Good actor.
He is a character actor, essentially. So,
even watching his live feeds,
mm-hmm.
he's like all over the place. Like and I love when he's signing anything grunt, he does grunts. He. And I laugh every time, but he is definitely a actor that I love from the series.
Yeah. So let's talk about Grunt's loyalty mission, because
before when you open his tank, you and
mm-hmm.
Grunt have kind of like a showdown,
standoff almost.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay.
Something that I learned from you is that you can actually shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that, because there's one where you're basically fighting him, and because he'll come out of the tank and kind of like attack you.
He will literally grab you, throw you up against the wall like human, and male or female, before you die, I need a name.
Yes.
and you just have this back and forth with him, like.
And it basically will show you a thing where you got your gun, like you go like this, and then you see the gun.
Yeah.
So right when they're first showing it, they show just Grunt and Shepard's faces.
Mm-hmm. To kind of hide that.
Yes.
A little bit. So two ways that I've done that, but one that I've primarily stuck to.
The one I want to know is how you get to the shooting.
Okay, so you keep them talking.
Okay.
You keep them talking. You don't. They'll give you a Paragon and a Renegade dialogue option. You can choose either one of those, and that'll pretty much diffuse the situation, and it'll show that you have the gun pointed into his side. Then he looks down and he's like, you show one hand but arm the other.
Yes. Yeah. And he's impressed with that.
Yeah. Well, he'll say that, but if you actually let him keep talking, you have the Renegade interrupt show up to where you can actually shoot him. And then he'll actually expand on that. He's like, show one hand but arm the other, and you don't hesitate. Nice. Yeah, I think you're worthy.
Yeah, because I've always done the first Renegade option, so I want to try that, because I've never shot at him, and when you showed me that, I was like, what?
You actually get his respect when you do that.
Yeah, I remember.
And that's like the biggest thing with him, to be able to say that, you did this, and that is actually what causes him to stick by you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, still going to his loyalty mission is essentially his way of
becoming a adult.
Right.
So basically, you go back if you haven't gone to Tachanka to do Morden's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you go to Tachanka and you basically find out what's going on, and all the Krogan are kind of like hesitant about Grunt because he is, they say, tank bred.
Right.
He's not a real Krogan. He's tank bred, and there's a specific Krogan that actually is like upset that you're even considering that that Rex is even considering that he goes through the rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
Because he's not a true born Krogan, they have a problem with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's not pure.
Right.
Pure. He's born from a tank, not born as a real Krogan.
They don't see him as pure. He sees himself as such because he doesn't have all the markings of the genophage. He doesn't have the struggle and everything they've gone through. So he would, in his case, essentially be a pure Krogan.
Yeah.
He is not natural in that case. That's the problem that they came across.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically you go through and talk to a shaman, and the Krogan that has a problem with you actually going through the rite of passage, you can renegade, interrupt him, and headbutt him as Shepard.
Oh God, I do that every time.
Me too. And
I do that every time.
Basically, it shuts him up.
Yeah, quickly.
And it's funny because like Shepard does the full on like headbutt, and then he's like, "Yeah, I did that. Yeah." And then basically what you do is you go through a portal thing, and you do a 3-phase fight. And then kind of explain what happens as you go through. Like a voice will come on after you hit the keystone, and fight Baron first.
The first one that you fight are the Baron. The second are going to be the crawlers from I don't even know what the actual monsters are.
I can't remember what they're called, but basically they look like they are giant, like a sea animal.
Kind of, yeah.
Like a crab, like a crab thing, but it's like got the shell on it, and
all I know is that they're ugly as hell.
Like or something.
Yeah, that does sound right.
Klinkson, Klaxon.
Clixon.
There you go. See, we got it.
Yeah, we were going to figure this out eventually. But and then the last thing that you fight, as far as the 3, is the Thresher Maw.
And the Maw you don't have to kill; you just have to survive. But killing it gives you
bragging rights.
Yes, but I don't know if it's the same thing as depending on difficulty, if it's shorter or longer. Do you have 5 minutes? Do you have 5 minutes no matter what?
I want to say it's 5 minutes no matter what. It's not like when we were talking about getting tally in the first game, they might adjust the time frame depending on the difficulty. I think it stays the same in this one. But yeah, one of the interesting things is when you finish with all of that, Gatatog Uvank, who was pretty much protesting that entire time when you were right. He's protesting when you're talking to Rex. He's protesting when you're talking to the shaman. He's the one that you headbutt. See, this is like one of the big things for me. I'm like all about the voice actors and everything they got in here. They actually had a lot of Star Trek actors in this game. Mina Sirtis, who plays Deanna Troi, ends up playing Matriarch Benezia.
Oh.
Yes. So when I first heard her voice, I was like, ooh, that sounds familiar. Then I look it up, I'm like, holy crap. No kidding. It kind of made sense who Gatatog Uvank's actor was, Michael Dorn, who plays Commander Worf in Star Trek, who was a Klingon and the closest thing to the Krogan by comparison. So seeing him or hearing him playing this character was like, ooh, that kind of makes sense, because if there was ever a translation between the two, that would definitely be it, and that would be the role for him to play, I think. But yeah, he's like really the last one that you come across after you've done everything.
You finish like fighting or surviving the Thresher Maw, and like Varian said, it's more rewarding to kill it. But you finish all that, and Grunt's like, yes, like I want more. And then you see a ship going, like a shuttle coming down, and it's Uvank. And
So
you fight him and his crew.
And then
doesn't he offer Grunt a position or something with that, like a clan, like he offers to be a part of their clan? And then
he does, but to quote both Shepard and Grunt, if I know Grunt, your offer's coming up muzzle velocity, and you do know Grunt. This Baron is meat. so Shepard and Grunt are basically like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, and that's pretty much where the fight starts and ends essentially. But yeah, that pretty much covers literally everything with Grunt. I mean, getting him wasn't much of anything. It was just releasing him and his body essentially going through puberty in its own way. His body is going through the changes at an accelerated rate because of him being Tangled. It's one of those that, get you through that stage. That way you can do what you were meant to do.
Yep.
And then he actually kind of explains himself into 3, how he, gets to where he is. Because at that point, he's actually handling his own squad, taking care of another problem on another planet. And I think we'll cover that one a little bit later. But I think
basically after all that happens, Rex offers him to be a part of Clan Urdnot, which is the clan that Rex is a part of.
Right.
And that's when Grunt actually feels, like he's a part of something, and he even says to Shepard, he feels like he belongs, and he basically considers Shepard, like he respects Shepard so much more for helping him go through that.
And that's where their bond kind of grows, almost equal to how Shepard and Garrus did, I would say.
Yeah, because Grunt and Shepard's relationship is great.
Father-son. It's like a father-son kind of thing.
Yes, it really is. Or a mother-son.
Right. Yeah. But in any event, yeah, Grunt's is probably one of the best straightforward stories, I would say. And it literally gives you everything that you need: humor, action, a little bit of headbutting, literally.
Grunt's in his own, like bringing him along to the majority of the missions is so much fun. The dialogue, every character has great dialogue, but there's some characters that you love to bring, especially considering Grunt is a character that you don't even have to get. You can literally give him to the Elusive Man. You don't need to open the tank. You can just say, oh, forget it, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And never get him. But because this is the last game that you get a Krogan teammate, I suggest highly taking him with you, because he is one of my favorite characters from Mass Effect 2. I bring him basically, him and Miranda and him and Tali are like my team in Mass Effect 2. I bring him and Tali or him and Miranda everywhere. He is my go-to, one of my squad mates. As soon as I have access to him, bam, he's there. I just love the dialogue that he has and just how fucking strong he is.
Yeah, I mean, he can handle literally anything, and he'll tell you if he can, because you'll hear him screaming about it.
There, I believe in On Horizon. Actually, he is one of my favorite people to bring because he literally charges at most of the husk.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds like something he would do.
He literally charges at half of them, and like when they're like on him or whatever, like attacking him from behind him, like get off me. And it's just like I said, it's great. And there's sometimes where I see him charge at the collectors.
I wouldn't doubt that. Okay, I would almost akin him to, and I'm actually looking at some of the. I ended up getting this Disney Infinity game at one point, and it came with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like the main 6 of the Avengers. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
He reminds me of the Incredible Hulk sometimes.
Let's say the Hulk.
He does not know his own strength. He doesn't know his own limitations, but he will go charging into whatever. You know,
He does know his strength, but he doesn't care if he lives or dies.
That's a better assessment, I would say.
Essentially, he doesn't care. He knows his strength, and he doesn't care if he lives or dies because
Right.
he's strong as fuck.
And you know, who's going to stop me, right?
Exactly.
So
that leaves Jack or Subject Zero.
Yep. I want to say that her real name is Jacqueline Knott.
Something like
that. But see, when you think about it, that does kind of explain the Subject Zero as well. She was actually abducted at an early age. 2161 is when she was born. She was abducted by Cerberus on Eden Prime, of all places, in 2165. That doesn't actually say whether she was born there or not, you know, if her parents were visiting or something, but that does show that, yes, she was captured at an early age and pretty much raised to do literally everything that she does. You actually find her on a prison ship called Purgatory. Basically chained down in cryo to keep her from doing anything, because if she got loose,
she's got something around her neck.
The clamp here, she had it down around her wrists. So as soon as she was able to get one hand free, she got her neck free, and then it was pretty much all hell broke loose once she got away.
Before you even get her,
right?
There's some stuff you gotta go through.
Yeah, you do have to go through security, essentially. One of which is Warden Curel.
Yes.
Who, again, is voiced by somebody who voices multiple characters in this game.
I think you told me this.
He voiced Balak in Mass Effect on X-57, and you actually meet him again later. But it is the same voice as one Saren Arterius.
Yes, you told me this.
Yes. So they basically kept him around to, you know, keep some of that story, keep some of the story going, you know, and who better to have a voice in there than him?
As another villain.
Yes. And I've heard him in a few other things, but he is just phenomenal when it comes to the Mass Effect trilogy. So he basically explains that, you know, he wondered, number one, if Cerberus had said anything about Jack, and Shepard got no information whatsoever.
That so he's also very hostile towards you at the very beginning. He basically says that you have to give up your weapons, and Shepard essentially is like, I'll relinquish one bullet.
Where do you want it?
And that is like the start of knowing that this isn't gonna go
very well
as you think it's gonna go. You're not just gonna go in and get Jack, you're gonna have to fight your way to Jack.
Right. Well, even still,
They're
going through,
nice.
yeah. So going into the prison, being escorted by Warden Kirill, he does, kind of explain everything that he can about Jack, and then explain a little bit more about the facility itself.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get to that final room.
Before you get to that room, there's a part where you can do a Paragon or a Renegade option where you see a guard in the cell with a prisoner beating the shit out of them.
Yeah.
You can either say, is that necessary or good going?
Yeah.
Now, and I find that actually very gratifying doing that, because it's like it shows, hey, even though they're a prisoner, what are you doing? You don't need to beat them.
Exactly. And even with the Renegade option, I want to say it's one of those Shepard pretty much goes from beginning to end. There's no point in beating a prisoner who can't defend himself. The guard will say something like, "This is a massage compared to what he's used to," and then Shepard will literally say, "I told you to stop."
Yes.
The guard will come back with, "You are surrounded by guns and cameras, and you really want to do this?"
Mm-hmm.
Shepard will be like, "Those guns and cameras won't be fast enough to save you."
Yeah.
Is that a threat? And then Shepard pretty much is like, "I told you to stop."
Yeah.
and then that pretty much cuts it all off.
You can stop it right away by just saying, "Hey, good going," and not even do that. But it's more fun to actually be like, "Hey, stop!" I told you to fucking stop. I will literally beat the shit out of you if you don't stop.
Exactly. So.
And then there's the other prisoner where you get Shepard's famous line.
I should go. I wish I could
go. Because it basically, they kind of actually tell you a little bit about Jack in that aspect too, because it's like one guy will be like, "Hey, I hear you're buying prisoners. Want to buy me?" And then it's like, "Oh, I'm just here for Jack." And they're like, "Oh, never mind.
I don't want to go anywhere with you."
Yeah, so they're basically telling you there's something about Jack that nobody likes, or nobody, people are technically scared of.
And so once you finally go through that last little bit, you go into out processing, is what they called it. But it was really just another cell for Shepard to be put in. And you hear that from the warden, and Shepard basically says, "Go to hell. I'll send you there myself." And then that's when all hell breaks loose, and all the guards are coming after you. The mech dogs, they send after you. So you got to fight your way through that. You end up in the, I want to say, observation room above where her containment cell is,
because you have to get her out of cryo.
Right. So once you do that, that's when she just explodes into the facility, working her way out. Eventually, once you cut through everything, including Warden Kirill, that gives you the face-to-face with her to recruit her. Now, little known fact, and you and I were actually discussing this prior to recording, her character is actually based off of Jack from the Chronicles of Riddick. One of the things that Riddick was able to do in the movies was, because of who his people were, they look human, but they're not. They're what they're called Furians. Well, they were able to have this discharge almost, to where when they did that, it would disperse almost like a shockwave and knock out anything in its path. That's essentially what Jack is. She is this overpowered biotic. And part of that, I want to say, came from her capture from Cerberus, experimenting on her, trying to turn her into something else, which you end up seeing in her loyalty mission.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, while you're still there on the ship, you see everything that she can do when she's in your squad. You can see all the power that she does have behind her. No, it's not as much as you would think.
They make her seem stronger than she actually
Yeah,
is when she's on your squad. Like, she is good, but she's not as strong as they make her out to be. Like,
right.
she's one of those characters that can die a lot.
Hmm.
So I don't tend to bring her with me. I don't tend to like Jack.
Hmm.
She's just this
Rebel.
oh, I had all this shit happen to me and I'm gonna like literally let it control my life.
Hmm.
I've had all this bad shit happen. Who are you? Who the fuck are you to tell me how I
Right.
feel and blah blah blah. And it's just like this kind of poor me, like sob
And
story in a way. And it's just like you want to sometimes tell her to shut the fuck up.
yeah.
And there
Um,
is even a thing where I think you could say, like, oh, shut up. And
yeah.
she's like, "Oh, I like that. You hear me bitching and complaining and you tell me to fuck off or whatever."
It's actually right after her loyalty mission. Uh,
Yes.
but basically, like, you're not the only one with a past, Jack.
Yes.
Everybody's had to deal with something. But again, it kind of goes to not even strictly romancing her, but if you do, the best way to do that is the Paragon route.
Mhm.
That way you can actually have her open up a little bit more. Um, that way she can let this is what happened to me. You go into more detail. Again, you see a lot of it with a loyalty mission, because it's an abandoned Cerberus facility. Some of the recordings are still intact, and you see.
It's not just an abandoned service facility, it's the facility she grew up in.
Right. So yeah, it is the facility she came from.
Mhm.
But you see some of the intact, um,
Recordings.
some of the recordings. Yeah, sorry. Um, you actually hear firsthand what they were doing,
Mhm.
um, how they turned her into what they did.
Mhm.
One of the final things that you hear is that they piggyback onto Alliance's Ascension program.
Yeah.
She freaks out when she hears this, um,
Saying that they started somewhere else.
thinking that they're going to do it to other kids,
Yes.
when in fact, more for kids with biotics. Had she gone that route, it probably would have she would have ended up different. But because it was Cerberus, she became this pirate essentially. Going around doing whatever she wanted to do, not even worried about the consequences, and just doing what she could to survive.
Even
Uh,
I think Shepard makes a comment about that the Ascension program isn't what she thinks it is.
right, yeah, because yeah, when she gets worried about it,
She says, Shepard, they started somewhere else or something like that, and she sounds freaked out.
and Shepard can tell her, uh, it's a place for biotic children. They don't torture anybody there, so
Yes.
so that you don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
But then by the end of it, she comes across someone who was there at the facility with her, and apparently he's been staying there ever since, just living there. A guy named Aresh, and you could tell almost from the beginning he's not all there. So by the time you go through this blood pack group, essentially,
Basically, you find out that there are actual people there. You see a Varen as you're exploring through, and she's like, "Who the fuck shot this Varen? Like, this is a fresh kill."
mhm,
So this is where you kind of keep your guard up, and then this is where you fight the blood pack, and then you meet a Krogan and a bunch of Forcha.
mhm. And then,
And
once you take this group out in this like very large room, that's when you meet Aresh, and
in her room.
in her exact room, yeah.
Yes.
Because she even mentions, when you're passing through it on the way around to it, she notices that it's a two-way mirror.
There's a yes.
She thought that it was the actual outside when it wasn't. Um, So she's learning that everything she experienced was a lie. But again, that's something that Cerberus is good at. But then, yeah, you do get the opportunity once you speak to Aresh and kind of go through like all the stuff that's happened. You have the option of either stopping Jack or letting Jack kill Aresh. Either one may or may not have any consequences going forward, but it will all depend on the morality that you decide to choose. It won't actually affect your relationship with her.
Yeah.
At any point, especially if you are in a relationship, the romance option with her. So, and then going forward, you do see like a huge difference between the two, between Jack if you romance her or don't. In Mass Effect 3, you see that she is a little bit more grown up, caring about more people than just herself, because she does become one of the teachers at Grissom Academy at, guess what? The Ascension Project.
Yeah.
So she ends up going into exactly what she was afraid of at first, but then once she found out about it, she becomes one of the teachers, more specifically a biotic teacher. And that gives her the opportunity to fight back against Cerberus once they come onto the station and try to abduct the kids. So really you do see a huge growth with her character and how she handles everything around her. And just like everybody else, it's one of the best, I don't know, almost redemption arcs, you can call it. Gare's, I would say more so. His would be a little bit more of a redemption arc, but you definitely see how Jack adapts to everything around her, especially being on the Normandy, and then how everything ends up for her just kind of smooths out. She's still got the chip on her shoulder when it comes to Cerberus. So when she found out that it was attacking the station, she saw red.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Now, two of the dialogue options that I've done, and one that I kind of like a little bit more, when whoever that was in Cerberus coming over the communications, they'll basically tell the kids to stand down and just come on over. We'll take care of you. And if you take almost like a Paragon route, where Shepard's like, they are lying. Jack will still say something about, don't trust anything that Cerberus says. But if you go like the Renegade route, she'll basically break down and say, you see these scars?
Yeah, because one of the kids is like, well, we should trust them or we should listen to them or something, and she goes off on like the kid.
She grabs Rodriguez by the shirt, pulls her in, almost like nose to nose, and she's like, look at these scars. You see this? That's what Cerberus did to me. You cannot trust them.
You hear the emotion in her voice.
Yes, and that right there was part of that like growth that you see out of her. She's faced her past, but the past keeps coming back, and she's like, we are handling this one way or another. And again, you just see that growth within her, that she's not going to let that stop her from doing what she can do. She's going to fight with Shepard, but at the same time, she's doing what she can to help where she's needed. And it doesn't become solely about her anymore. It becomes about the people around her.
And that's the difference between her and Mass Effect 2 and 3. Like in Mass Effect 2, she's very much about herself. I find even if you don't like, no matter what, she's going to change in 3, because no matter what, she becomes that teacher for the kids. But she adapts more, I find, if you do romance her. I have never really, I think I might have done her romance once, but it was like way back when.
Same.
I haven't done it recently enough to know how it happens. I just know that if you want to romance her, like actually romance her, you can't sleep with her in the lower deck.
Right. That is like a one-off thing if you do decide to do that.
She doesn't, basically, Kelly Chambers will tell you that she doesn't respect the people that she just sleeps with.
Right.
And that's kind of your warning to be like, hey, don't sleep with her if you actually want a connection with her.
Right.
Because after that, she kind of just blows you off. She's like, Shepard, you keep coming down here. And it's like, why?
Yeah. She'll basically tell you that there's not much else to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't take that route and actually speak to her, get to know her again, dig in a little bit deeper, that's where she really starts to grow mentally, because that's all that she's ever known is just the physical and the cutoff. She's never had anybody actually care about her. The fact that Shepard was down there to begin with pretty much said, even to her, that this isn't going anywhere. But then Shepard starts to show that he cares, and you see that change in her, and it's like, you see a change in everybody at some point in the two games, but it's like with her in particular, someone who's had their guard up for so long and never released it. Hers is I would actually say that hers was the most challenging. One of, anyway. When it comes to a romance option, because I mean, even Miranda, she doesn't like throw herself at you, but it's not hard to navigate her option.
She still is very standoffish. Like she is kind of like, should we do this with Miranda? Like she's like, let me think about it. Blah blah blah. Like she has a hard time opening up to you, but at the same time, like she does end up opening up to you, and it is a really cute romance if you've ever done it, and continuing it in 3 is great too, because there is a part in 3 where Miranda can die if you don't do certain things. It's when you go to Sanctuary, and there's certain things that you have to do before you go to Sanctuary. You have to warn her about Kai Lang, and you have to give her access to Citadel, yes.
Or Alliance resources, I want to say.
Something like that. There's 2 things that you have to do, and there might be a third, but I can't remember for sure. But you have to do at least those 2 things in order for her to survive. And it's more so the Alliance resources over anything. But like having her die is not easy.
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen all the deaths. There's a couple that I've done once and I will never do again. Tally being one of them. She literally, like, that one breaks my heart because she literally kills herself. And it is
on her home planet.
Yes, you get to her home world and she literally, I think if you choose the Geth, but you did certain things in 2, she will kill herself, and it's just like she literally like throws herself off the edge, and it's just like, oh my god, I will never do that again. Tally is one of my Tally is my favorite character in this game. Like, I will never ever 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 do it again. Like, I think I did it the one time and I'm like, okay, no. I like literally stopped playing and I went back to 2.
Yeah.
Cuz I'm like, I'm not having this happen again and again. I will never ever, I will always make sure I do the things that you need to do, because I will never not save Tally.
And yeah, that's something that I've always done, is made sure that everybody survived. I think at first doing some of the ship modifications on 2 might have actually caused somebody to die. Even if even if you have their loyalty, they could still die in that case.
If you didn't do I think the shielding.
Mhm.
I think there's one where Jack is in the one room. I think Jack can die.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think she's in the room with the probably the core. I want to say, yeah. Because I mean, her room is literally right below it, so she would be.
I think Tally can. I think Tally can. And there's a couple things like if you have Jacob do the go through the vents, even if he's loyal, he can die. If Morden is not loyal and you have him go back with the crew in the final mission, he can die, but your crew survives.
Yeah. So there's
even have ways of your crew dying after the characters come and take over your ship.
Yeah, if you wait too long, if you either wait too long or I want to say that's it.
I think if you do, it depends on how many missions you do after.
Because I've actually gone through a few and lost crew members after that. So yeah, that there's always a way for somebody to not survive this game.
And it can be as simple as not having their loyalty and not upgrading your ship.
Right.
Or like I said, sending them on the wrong
path, essentially.
Yes. The wrong mission when you're on the collector's base. The 3 that you can take through the vents are essentially Kasumi, Legion, and Tally.
Yeah. Jacob thinks he can do everything. That's why, if you do decide to send him into that and let him die, it's not going to hurt much of anything. But
I usually will. I've done it where I kill him and he's the only one I kill.
Right.
But because he's not my favorite. But I mean, like, his romance is cute, but knowing what happens in 3, it's not
worth it. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna call this one a night and say that that's part 1 of our character collection.
And Mass Effect 2 anyways. So this is all the characters that you can get before Horizon. The next characters we are going to talk about are after Horizon, and then we'll kind of mention their loyalty missions as well, and if they have anything, if they're romance options, stuff like that. That episode we'll probably go more in depth with Zaid and Kasumi as well. And what differences there are in what happens if you bring them and if you don't bring them, because they are DLC characters.
Right. And even characters like that, they do have at least something to do with
impact.
Yeah. Zaid especially. Because again, we mentioned how you can bring him along on Omega to collect Archangel Garrus, and he actually knows the guy in charge of the Blue Suns on Omega.
And maybe Eclipse, we're not sure, but I feel like I've heard him mention something about the Eclipse people.
Yeah, but yeah, we'll definitely go over all that next episode, and again go into detail with their loyalty missions and everything. And anything else we want to go over before we leave?
Not really, no. No, I think we covered everything we need to cover.
Cool. Well, guys, we will see you again next time, and stay tuned. We'll have the next episode loaded up as soon as we can. All right.
All right.
Bye, guys.